Hi, Denae.
Hi, how's it going?
Doing okay, hanging in there. Been super sick. So otherwise we would be cranking out a podcast every week,
Yeah,
but
yeah, and no wine review. We're doing this virtual this time.
gotta reduce the inflammation in my body. So
Get
no
a
wine.
rest, all of that good stuff. So between doing virtual and not being able to share the bottle together,
Yeah,
and um, you trying to recover from a heck of a year with so far with sickness. Um, we'll just kind of go over the real estate stuff.
yeah, let's do it. So last week we talked about step 3 of the 4-step buyer process, which was basically getting into contract on a home. And I kind of talked about like contingencies and negotiations and all of that. And so now we're focusing on step 4, which is basically getting to closing. And a big piece of that is Denae getting you final approval,
Yep.
so that your loan closes out, they can exchange funds at closing, and yay, I get to give you the key to your house. So Denae, take it away as far as how this process goes to get final approval.
Yeah, so once you have a fully signed around contract to get that all signed by the buyers and the seller, typically you would send that over to me, or whoever the agent is would send it over to the lender. And that's kind of like that's my go time.
Mhm.
I would complete the application, and really that is just inputting the address to select to hit the five, we call it 5 aliens, which is the uh putting me on, I put myself on the spot on this. It's like its name, its credit score, social security, all a bunch of stuff that we already have in there, loan amount,
Mhm.
and then it's a property address.
Okay.
So that property address is the last thing to actually say you've completed your application.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Got it.
so when your guys is the contingency that is get application within 3 days,
Yep.
that's typically done day one
Mhm.
because I put in that address and that contingency is cleared.
Makes sense. So like just one quick note on the finance contingency, kind of like on my side. So for buyers, really important to know that there's 3 ways the finance contingency protects you. And think of like contingency as protecting your earnest money. If you don't have a contingency, that's a breach of contract if you want to walk away. So we operate within these contingencies, and the finance contingency, there's 3 way it protects you. One, if you like lost your job before closing. Obviously lender can't qualify you if you don't have income that's going to be coming in.
Yeah.
Um, 2 would be if for whatever reason they're going through underwriting, let's say like with rates kind of being a little turbulent, like what if rates jumped up half a point and then all of a sudden you don't qualify for the purchase price? Like it would protect you if that were to
You don't
happen.
qualify.
Yeah, then third piece would be the appraisal, and we'll talk in episode 6 in more length on appraisal, but basically there's a contingency within the contingency that protects the buyer and is able to give them negotiation power if the appraisal came back low. So we love a good finance contingency as much as I can. I want that in your contract, and I know you do too, Denae.
Yeah. I I'd have agents call me, especially in the heydays of like 2020, 2021, all of that type of stuff, and be like, can I waive financing? And I would always hesitate, not because like I didn't have confidence in my pre-approval and the buyer. There
Right.
is so many things that could happen. So
Sure.
there is definitely situations that it could make sense to, but
Mhm.
it's definitely one that
You need to weigh your pros and cons, and a good lender and a good agent are going to walk you through the kind of risks of that scenario. I mean, obviously, in a competitive environment, it definitely is going to make your offer stand out to have no finance contingency. You just need to be okay with the potential of losing your earnest money.
exactly.
So that's the biggest piece to kind of keep in the back of your mind.
Yeah, so, the application contingency or of that finance contingency is a big one.
Right.
Usually nothing comes back from it, but if for whatever reason the lender or the client doesn't decide to move forward right away, getting that address in is a big piece of making sure we stay within that typically 3-day time period.
Yeah.
From there, we reach out to all the various third parties, the title and escrow team, to get their side of docs, get things connected between the two of us so they know the exact setup. We collect updated documents from the borrower, whether, you know, a lot of the times they've been out shopping for at least 30 days. So we just get an updated pay stub, maybe an updated bank statement, just various updated documents to get ready to send to underwriting.
Right.
At the same time, we prep the initial disclosures. So that will be, majority of them are just like the legal jargon of, we don't discriminate, we don't, here's this act and that and Dodd-Frank and all these different like
Truth
things.
in lending,
Yeah,
TILA.
exactly. Like all these various acts and reforms and laws that are put into place to protect the borrower.
Right.
The other portion of that is them actually signing the application. So it's signing the, making sure that everything's correct. It's signing the initial loan estimate and a handful of other various loan specific documents. I always tell people though that like these are the initial ones. When the loan estimate is set out, that is what, there's certain fees that we're restricted and can't adjust. So we as a lender have to make sure that it's pretty dang accurate. There's two different categories. There's one that can fully adjust. That would be your insurance, your property taxes. Like if for whatever reason those are off or your insurance policy comes in different, those can be adjusted to, there's no limit on those adjustments.
Gotcha.
There are certain other fees that can be adjusted by 10%. So if something is slightly higher, then it, as long as it's 10% or less higher than what's on that initial LE, it can be adjusted and the borrower can be charged for it.
Gotcha. I'm like having flashbacks right now because I was a mortgage funder like 12 years ago. And part of my checklist before I could fund a loan was double checking that those fees didn't go more than 10%.
Yep. And there's others that have a zero tolerance, so can't adjust by a penny. If they do, the lender has to cover those.
Gotcha.
And it's called a cost to cure. It's just a cost.
Yep, I remember that.
You remember that?
It's all coming back.
Yep, exactly. So that's really the benefit. That's really like the, not the purpose, but like that's a big part of the loan estimate, is kind of giving a very detailed estimate. For me, those should be, unless something completely changed on the property type or whatnot, that we as in me and the lender, or me and the client have been talking about, those should be pretty accurate to what I've been quoting previously.
Yeah.
The application would be similar. You know, they just go through and review. If something is slightly off, they just need to let us know, and then we'll make the adjustment and they'll sign another one. These are all just initial documents that will slowly get fine-tuned and everything. So by the time you go to the final signing table, they're 100% accurate.
Gotcha.
You know, there's been times that the client puts in the wrong birth year by accident. And, you know, I don't know what their birthday is. So they are like, oh, that's wrong. I'm like, okay, well, let's fix it. And then you'll sign it again. So it's just stuff like that.
So it sounds like kind of refilling out your application disclosures. And now it's like processing.
Yes. So once those are all signed, once those initial disclosures are all signed, once you get updated documents, we get documents from title and escrow, we'll submit it to underwriting. And they'll do their full review.
Got it.
Sometimes we do that even ahead of time to do a TBD approval, but if we didn't do that,
that's like a pre-underwritten approval.
Right. Yep. And so I do that. I do a TBD approval if someone has a very complicated income calculation that I'm like, they're going to have questions on this. So let's get ahead of it now. Or sometimes I can do it to make offers more competitive and it gives the agents kind of, I would say kind of the warm and fuzzy feeling that,
Yeah, I mean, definitely like, so last night, one of my listings went pending, got 3 offers, and the finance piece, I was like very shocked. Everyone had a fantastic lender that they submitted a pre-approval with, but our winning offer, they were pre-underwritten, which just gave my client, I mean, obviously it gives me good confidence as an agent, but my clients were like, I really like that they've already been through underwriting. And all they need is a clean appraisal and a clean title. So it does help for sure.
yeah. Because you don't, like when I look at my stuff, I know what I'm doing.
Right.
And I know I'm confident,
Yeah.
but the receiving agent may not know me. They may not know, my quality of work and all that type of stuff. So, it's for sure a valid, warm and fuzzy feeling.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
if you're a straightforward W-2 borrower,
Yeah.
that's what it's for.
Makes sense.
So we'll get it submitted to underwriting. And during that time, I typically wait until the inspection contingency is cleared, if that's on there, to order the appraisal. But that's when we'll order the appraisal and
We do that to save you money. We don't want to order your appraisal. It's God knows how much money, $1,000.
Yep.
They all vary. But I don't want you paying for something if the house is not coming together, if the negotiations are not coming together during that inspection. So that's why.
And I've also had some agents want to make sure it's waited to be ordered until after for negotiating power. To essentially, if you order the appraisal and you move forward with that, it's typically a clear sign that you're moving forward with it.
Yeah.
Or it can be. So
I mean, to me, I'm like, it's a different contingency. I don't think it like matters, but I mean,
I've had some agents be like,
different agents, different ideas.
exactly, different negotiating styles and whatnot. So I've had some agents like keeping the appraisal not being ordered as another form of like negotiating power.
Interesting.
Yeah. So kind of combination of the two. One, potential negotiating power, and two, if for whatever reason you don't move forward, I don't want you stuck with that fee.
Right.
But we'll go into the full ins and outs of the appraisals and everything when next episode. So once the appraisal comes in, assuming it comes in at value, we'll just assume that for this one. In that time period as well, we would get conditional approval. Most of the time, those conditional approvals are just crossing the T's, dotting the I's sort of conditions. It's asking for an appraisal, maybe a transaction history showing the withdrawal of the earnest money, all these things that are kind of happening throughout the process. So we'd collect all of those, we'd make sure the insurance policy is all set up, which the client would shop for themselves with their trusted insurance agent. And then we package it all one more time to get submitted for final approval.
Right.
After the appraisal comes in, we can get your closing disclosure sent out. So anytime between appraisal coming in and resubmitting for final approval, your closing disclosure would go out.
Okay.
I guess I'll rewind a second too about rate lock.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
Yep. Typically I lock in within a day or two after receiving the contract. Especially in this volatile market. I don't want the risk and the responsibility of locking in and rates going up. Right. There's times though that if I have a very savvy borrower that is very in tune to the market, I'll have a discussion with them and say, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want, there's an inflation report, there's some report coming out that we kind of think that will improve. What do you want to do? And I've had some say, let's still lock in.
So question on locking rate. You cannot lock your rate until after an accepted contract, correct? Right?
Generally speaking, yes. We need an address in order to lock it. We do have programs that have extended locks that you can do without it, but I really don't recommend it because it's so much cost up front.
Oh.
Yes, there's a lot of times you have to actually, most of the time, if you're within 90 days of closing, you just lock in the rate. If you walk away, there's no cost or anything like that.
Gotcha.
For
Okay.
these extended locks, there's a few different structures to them, but the majority of the time you have to send in a check to actually lock in. And it's just because it's a risk for the bank.
Okay.
And so they, they're mitigating a risk by allowing you to lock in without a contract.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
majority of the time, I don't recommend that at all.
Okay. Makes sense.
And similar to do with the new construction, if the new construction's 6 months out, I'd say, hey, let's just monitor rates.
Sure.
Being in the market we are right now, I would for sure say let's float, because we're gonna kind of see this up and down, but I think our
Talk
trend
about float. What does that mean?
floating your rate. So you're floating to see what happens with it, versus locking.
Okay.
Um,
So you can do that.
what float your
Float? Yeah.
Yep, you can wait to lock in until you resubmit final approval.
That seems really risky to me.
And it all depends. I mean, in December, I had one of the really savvy borrowers
Okay.
that said, there's these big time reports coming out, and they should all point towards improvement.
And
And it did, and it paid
good for
off
them.
big time. Paid off.
Nice.
So, it's such a hard thing. There's times that it'll pay off, and there's times that it won't pay off, and it'll do the complete opposite.
Gotcha.
If you did that on the last inflation report that was earlier this month, you would have seen a huge swing on the upwards.
Yeah.
And we almost saw that overnight. So it's definitely a hard thing, and that's why I typically recommend just securing it.
So what happens if you lock in a rate and then rates like go down? Can you unlock and relock?
Yeah. So you can't unlock and relock.
Okay. Okay.
But my bank does allow you to, we call it renegotiate the lock.
Oh, okay.
So essentially what that is, so there is your interest rate, and then you have your discount points.
Okay.
And the interest rate, I'm trying to figure out how to condense I think we'll do a whole episode on like rates and how they're all that type of stuff. But so I'm going to try and condense it as much as possible. You have your rates and your discount points. The discount point is the cost of the rate.
Got it.
And a lot of the times when we say, oh, rates got worse, let's say today, I quoted someone earlier today, 7.5% had a 1 point cost.
Okay.
So if I say, oh, rates got a little bit worse today, that could mean that 7.5% had a 1.25% cost instead of the
1.25 of the loan amount, right?
Yeah. All of my stuff is based off of the loan
amount. Got it.
And then, I could say, oh, they got a little bit better. So maybe that 7.5% had a 0.75 cost to it.
Gotcha.
So the discount point is really what moves. And that's where you would say, like, if we say, oh my gosh, rates got way worse, maybe that 7.5% now has a 2-point cost. Like you could still get that 7.5%, but that's not what I would quote. Sure. That may mean we're at 8% with a 1-point cost or something like that. So that's really how they fluctuate.
Gotcha.
And now I forget where I was going with that.
We kind of backtracked on rates, and then we're talking about the closing disclosure, that piece before I think final approval is submitted.
Okay. I knew I had a different point, but I forgot. I was trying to condense.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So we would, renegotiation. That's where we're going.
Yes.
Renegotiation. So the discount point. So say we locked in at 7.5% at 1 point cost. If that 7.5, if a week goes by, rates improve, and that 7% now was no cost. So it improved by 1 discount point. I can request a renegotiation.
Oh, okay.
And it's not, and it's a renegotiation because it's not just as simple as, hey, we get a switch to this. the 7.5% at no cost. There's a slight fee to it. You're on today's pricing, so you really have to look at it, each individual one, and make sure it makes sense, but there's the potential to take advantage of it.
Okay.
Now, that's not the case across the board for lenders. That's something my bank does, American Pacific Mortgage, that's what they do. That's their policy. I do also have the ability to broker, so I do have the ability to go to different lenders. I don't do that all that much just because I really feel like my bank is the best spot to go. That's why I'm with them.
Yeah.
But I know at least one of the lenders that we work with on the broker side doesn't allow for that. So
Okay.
it's very, bank specific.
Got it. Makes sense.
So that was a renegotiation. We lock in your rate. If it's not locked in by the time the initial disclosures go out, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. You would get an updated loan estimate that shows the locked rate.
Got
and
it.
all that. And then you'd get your closing disclosure set. That closing disclosure one is one more refined fee breakdown.
Got it.
And then that also sets your first available signing date with escrow. So if you were to sign, let's say your closing disclosure went out today, it's Tuesday, right? It's Tuesday.
Yes.
Yeah. It's 27. So there is a 3-day wait period.
Okay.
And you can sign on the 3rd day.
So Friday.
You can sign on the 4th day. So it would be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you could sign Friday.
Got it. Okay.
We're gonna pause for a second. I need to confirm that because I'm drawing a blank right now.
Oh.
That's something I should know, but
Okay, I'll cut that out.
yeah. 3-day, it's a 3-day, because there's certain ones that are
Yeah.
day 0.
Gotcha.
The 3-day period is by dates, not by hours. Thus, disclosures must be delivered 3 days before. Oh, come on, give me a count. Give me a count. Let me look at a calendar. Yeah, that's right. Why am I second guessing myself?
It's okay. I always get in my head about the 5 days thing on my side of things. It's just, yeah.
I'm gonna text my
Like,
boss.
is it calendar days or business days?
Well, and that's the thing. Some things some things ones count, some things don't.
Right.
I'm texting Chris really quick.
Oh, you're good.
It's hopefully he responds quick. So where should I rewind to? I should rewind to the CD going out.
Well, we were talking, yeah. So just talk about, okay, so we're almost to final approval, your
Yeah.
CD's gonna go out. This is when you can sign. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay. So after you receive, or we resubmit for final approval, your closing disclosure will go up. And that one will have a refined numbers of, one more refined numbers to your down to the penny total cash needed at closing. And it also sets your first sign date.
Gotcha.
So after you sign that, you can sign with escrow 3 days later.
Got it.
And sometimes docs will be out and everything by then. Sometimes, that's.
You just gotta wait though, till that 3 days.
Exactly. So, once we receive final approval, you will, we'll work on getting the doc sent to escrow. And escrow will kind of do their thing to to get everything ready and prepped, and they'll
Balance.
balance, exactly. So
Yep.
that's when the real final number down to the penny is
Right.
going to be sent. You know, there's some people are like, well, why don't you know that? But there's things that escrow are getting. Like I just had
Utilities, insurance, taxes,
well, all of that type of
prorations.
stuff.
Yeah.
I just had a settlement statement balance today, and there was a HOA to be
Yep.
paid.
Right.
So, you know, it's just little things like that that I may not have visibility on, or, you know, I can estimate it, but I don't know down to the penny because they're waiting for a payoff demand.
Right.
So they'll do that. They'll go back and forth with my funding team, and then we'll say, yep, that's good to go. They will schedule the signing with the sellers and the buyers. And then, typically we fund the next day or whatever the close date is. If they sign, we definitely have time that it is down to the crunch time for various reasons. And we can have people sign in the morning and fund that same day. So, and then at that point, we get the documents, or my funding team, I should say, get the documents. They do their thing. They make sure everything's there. They send the wire to escrow. At the same time, the buyer will send their final cash to close number to escrow. Escrow is the middleman that then disperse the money to the needed parties. And they also record to the county. And then that's when you come back in and you can give them the keys.
Yeah, so kind of backing up, like one final piece, like on my end before like recording and closing is we always do a final walkthrough within 5 days prior to closing. We want to make sure that the house is in the same condition as when you initially viewed it. Make sure the dishwasher is working, like make sure there's no like holes in the drywall. And if there are, like we definitely need to go back to the selling side and just say, hey, like you need to replace this or fix this with like or better quality. So that's like your one last chance to make sure the house is in good condition. So definitely always do a final walkthrough.
I gotta ask, have you ever had any nightmare? Have you ever had any nightmare final walkthroughs?
Not yet, but man, there's a gal I follow on social media. Shout out to Heather Maddox with Windermere, and her buyer walked into like a hoarder situation a couple of weeks ago, and like thankfully they were able to get the listing side to like pay for junk removal. Like she showed pictures on social media and it was like appalling.
So the house was fine.
I don't know what happened. Like I don't really know like the whole context of it, but like it was a battle to get someone to take care of taking out trash from the property. So yeah. Mama Bear would be all over that if that happened to my buyer. Let me tell you.
That's crazy.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, so yeah, always do final walkthrough. And then on the day of closing, so obviously the documents get sent to the county to record. That I couldn't tell you when that's gonna happen. It's anywhere from like early morning to like 5, sometimes 6, sometimes 7 o'clock at night that they'll get the recording numbers back. The recording number is basically like, think of it as a receipt that the change of ownership has been recorded and it's official with the county. So that is when I can give you keys. So
When you get the
typically,
recording numbers.
say that again.
When you get the recording numbers.
Yep, when you get the recording numbers, that's when I can give keys. Yep.
Whether you get it at 10 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock at night, you can give it at any time.
Yes, as long as those recording numbers are in. Now the seller does contractually have until 9 p.m. to vacate. Often they are out before then, but there have definitely been instances where a seller just needed a little bit of extra time. Maybe that was owner occupied. So that can be normal. So I just kind of preface buyers with that. You know, and then other thing for you to kind of take care of is set up your utilities. So set up your water, sewer, garbage, electric, gas, all of that to start the next day. Should be a pretty easy process. My transaction concierge, Trish, she's awesome, and she'll give you like a breakdown of like, hey, here's who to contact. And then, yeah, I'll typically either meet you at the property, give you the keys, or we'll hide them just depending on your work schedule. Well, I'll kind of go up like your pace. and then get you the keys and you can move in. So
Hey.
that's the super exciting part. I also get like really sad because I'm like, oh, I don't get to talk to my people as often.
You spend so much time with them
Oh
and
my
then,
gosh, you spend so much time together and then like all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's it.
yeah, yeah, I really like, I feel like when I first started, I did a lot more, either I did a lot of in person, or virtual I mean, that's 9 years ago, I wasn't doing, no one was really
Yeah.
doing virtual meetings.
No one was
Um,
doing it 4 years ago. Like, let's
yeah,
just
exactly.
COVID
And
changed
then,
that.
COVID happened and one,
Yeah,
we were doing so many refinances
right.
and just like pumping them out and didn't really have any time. And I really like this last like year or so be like, no, take a step back, get to know them even more. Cause I have a conversation, I have multiple phone conversations with them, but sitting even face to face virtually
Oh
has
yeah.
been such a joy. I had a meeting last night and I was just like, this is
It's
why we
so
do it, because we get to like help these people and get them to understand it and all that
absolutely.
stuff.
Yeah. No, like it brings you back to like the joy of like why we do this. And it's to help people. Like it is not just to sell a house. It's not just to get a commission. It's not like that. Like what's that phrase? Like, uh, do something that you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Like this, we love what we do.
Yeah,
I love the people that I get to work with and I want to work with more incredible people like that. So
exactly. Yeah. And I think for me, it's like the mortgage loan side of it is so complicated
yeah.
and there's so many nuances. And a lot of the times they don't get explained to. They'll just be like, here's the numbers. And
Yep.
then they'll get a different set of numbers that are completely different because one of 500 things changed and
Yep.
they don't know why. And they don't know why ahead of time.
Mhm.
So I really like taking the time to like, okay, I was on the phone with these people on Zoom for an hour and a half last night.
Yeah.
Um, and because they had questions and I was like, keep them
Right.
coming, keep them coming.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it,
Really important to have an advocate. Like this is the biggest purchase you'll make in your life, probably.
I saw a quote
Yeah.
on Instagram this week or last week that said let's call it your real estate team should
Mhm.
have the tendency of a teacher, not of a salesperson.
Dave Ramsey.
Was that Dave Ramsey?
Dave Ramsey. Yep.
Oh,
Part of a
okay.
teacher. Yeah. Part of a teacher, not of a salesperson, something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's true.
Perfect. Well, next episode, we'll go through detailed appraisal because there's a lot of nuances to that one. So we'll kind of take a whole time frame to dive into that one, and we'll see you on the other side.
All right.
Bye bye.
Bye.